friends, welcome to Midwifery Garden. Today is going to be all about onions. I do grow my onions from seed. I know a lot of people grow them from starts. Starts to me are little baby onions, and onions like to flower their second year. So I feel like starts go to seed a lot more often. Sets, the little things that look like teeny tiny onions, sets. You can buy onion starts that are already, somebody else started them from seed and you just buy them already started, and those are great. Most people do really well with those. They don't tend to go to seed as much. You can actually get them much more well developed than what I have here because I planted mine far too closely together. This entire tray is sweet onions, but my sweet onions tend to grow much bigger. When growing onions, the most important thing about growing onions is knowing what day length you have. I'm in the north, so I have long day onions, but if you grow onions that are not the appropriate length, which is sunlight hours for where you're growing, they won't bulb properly and you'll get little tiny golf ball size onions all the time. But I have two great varieties here of sweet onions that grow really well in my area, Walla Wallas and Alyssa Craig's. My storage onions, these don't store very well. I'll usually just, I usually will dry them out and let them sit for a little while, but as soon as they start to turn, we just chop them up and put them in the freezer. And they're super useful that way. It's a really hard, gross day to do it, but then they're fantastic. But these are ones that are a little bit better with storage. So I've got Patterson's, which are a white/yellow storage onion, Frontier, which is another one of those, and then this one's new to me this year, Barolo, which is a red onion. So, because you can see these guys a little bit better, let's see, maybe this is a good one, we can see a little bit better. So I start my onion seeds already in these deep pots. This is probably the right number of seeds. And this is probably way too many seeds. So you probably want 20, maybe 20 in one of these. And you'd think, well, that's too densely packed. How are you gonna get those apart? So I start these super early. I start these in January. I maybe should start them even sooner than that, so I could get them a little bit bigger before we plant them out. But I started them way back in January. They can go out, they can accept a little bit of cold. These have been hardening off for a little while yet, but they don't like those really heavy frosts. So I usually, successfully at least, don't plant them out until April. Again, I'm in a zone 6A, so it depends on kind of where you're living. But the next thing we do after we get them here, they've had a bunch of haircuts. These would be 2 feet tall if we hadn't given them haircuts. You don't want them less than about 4 inches, but these could do with maybe another little haircut. But if they get too tall, they flop over and they break their stems, and that's not something that we're looking for. Now, sometimes once they're in the ground, they do fine, and I will show you how we're gonna plant them in the ground. But certainly while they're under the grow lights, they're much easier to manage if they just get some haircuts. And then once you've got them like this, they're actually much easier than you expect to get them ready to plant outside. So I'm gonna pop out this whole container. We're just gonna squish a little on the sides and tap the bottom, and they're all gonna pop out. Now, this looks crazy. This looks way overgrown. You would never want to plant something that was a tomato or a pepper with roots like that. But here's the great thing about onions. You just give them a little gentle tug, and these roots are so strong that they just stay on there. And that's what you need. So I will spend hours today, because I have so many, doing this. And then once I've got them all separated, then they're gonna be ready to go on the ground. And I'll take you along for that. The most important things about growing onions, in case I forget when I get all excited about putting them in the ground, is that the roots stay shallow. okay? You never get super deep roots. They stay pretty shallow. They're really just in the first couple of inches. And this is where your bulb is gonna form, right here, okay? So you really don't want these to go super deep in the ground. If they go super deep in the ground, the compaction of the soil around them is gonna make it really challenging for that bulb to grow. So you're gonna plant them really shallow, just enough for them to stay upright. The other thing that's really important about onions is that they are very, very heavy feeders. So you really need great soil, loose soil, and most of the time you really do need some fertilizer. These guys could do really well with some blood meal, just straight nitrogen. Every leaf that grows is a ring around the onion. So you want a lot of leaf growth because that's what's gonna bulb up and bring you those big onions. So those are kind of the most important things. You can plant them really deep. If you plant them really shallow, you don't get good roots to start with, and they won't be able to hold themselves up as much. So I really do like starting them in the deeper containers and not the little tiny cells. And these have just been going for a couple months under some grow lights inside. They've been outside for, you know, hardening off for about a week. So last night was their first full night out. We're gonna start separating them out, and we're gonna plant them at the far garden. So I will take you over there when I've got these all separated out and ready. All right, see you over there. Most of the onion planting, but I just wanted to bring you in and show you. So usually I put my rows about yay far apart, which is about 6 inches, and my onions themselves about 4 inches apart. You can do them further apart than that if you're trying to grow really large onions and you have a variety that will support that. But I don't usually really need more than 4-inch onions, so I do them in rows about 6 feet apart, and the onions themselves about 4 inches apart. So it'll look something like this, okay? And then it's really easy. I literally just pinch them in, just enough to get them standing upright. This particular bit of soil has already been fertilized. And that's it, friends. That's all we needed for Onion Growing 101. We'll see you later.